This delivery guy was simply too kind-hearted, and his life changed totally in just one day. First, during his daytime delivery run, an elderly lady with limited mobility asked him to help move a box up a slope.
위쪽으로? 네, 알겠습니다.
Then, while he was having dinner in the evening, a phone next to him suddenly rang. When he answered, the female owner's voice sounded very anxious, saying she would offer 300,000 won as a reward if he was willing to deliver the phone to her in person. So the guy didn't even have time to finish his delivery, immediately hopped on his motorcycle and rushed to the address provided by the owner. But when he arrived, there wasn't a single person around. Just then, the phone rang again. The female owner said it was too late and inconvenient to meet a stranger, telling him to leave the phone in a telephone booth in the tunnel. The guy followed her instructions, placed the phone inside, and took the 300,000 won. Little did he know tragedy was just beginning.
누구세요? 박대준 씨, 당신을 강간 및 살인 혐의로 긴급 체포합니다.
Taejong initially thought the police had just arrested the wrong person, but he was instantly stunned when he got to court. The elderly lady's box turned out to be a corpse disposal box containing body parts. The phone he had found and returned belonged to the victim, with Taejong's fingerprints perfectly on it. His couple bracelet was found at the dismemberment scene, and even his DNA was present in the victim's body. All the evidence perfectly pointed to Taejong. Even though Taejong shouted frantically that he was innocent, the court still found him guilty. Taejong was sentenced to life imprisonment and thrown behind bars, but misfortune didn't end there. The prison bully targeted and beat him. His girlfriend couldn't withstand the public pressure and broke up with him, and even his only relative, his younger brother, did something foolish. Just as Taejong was overcome with despair, he was shocked to discover that his bad luck was totally set up by someone pulling the strings behind the scenes. Even his defense lawyer was working for that person.
태진이 네가 죽였냐? 그래, 내가 죽였어. 이발 어떻게든 죽인다. 이 안에서 네가 어떻게?
Prison guards, police officers, and lawyers were all protecting the person pulling the strings behind the scenes, yet despite this, Taejong still vowed to avenge his brother, no matter the cost. Just a few days ago, Taejong had a happy life. His parents were no longer around, but he had a sensible younger brother to rely on. His younger brother was excellent at studying, so Taejong told his brother to focus on his studies, while he worked hard to earn money to support him through school. Recently, Taejong was planning to open a small shop of his own. To raise money for renovations and loans, he started working as a delivery rider. Even though life was a bit tough, Taejong always faced it with a smile. He never hesitated to lend a hand when he could. Taejong also had a considerate girlfriend, Susie, who was willing to endure hardships with him. The night before the incident, Susie offered to stay overnight at his small house. The two spent a wonderful night together. The next day, before going to work, Taejong didn't forget to throw away the trash that contained condoms. Then he started his delivery work as usual. When delivering to a household, he noticed a potted flower wilted from the sun in the staircase. As someone who loved flowers, he casually moved the pot to a cool spot. He also wrote a note to remind the owner. Shortly after, Taejong met with the elderly lady, and the incident of returning the phone. The very next day, he was arrested by the police and taken to the station. The charge was suspicion of rape and dismemberment. It turned out that the police had found the dismembered body of a 20-year-old girl in the Han River Tunnel. The moment Taejong was arrested, this incident weirdly blew up. Everyone was talking about it on all the news. Nearly everyone in South Korea knew about it. The police had caught a pervert surnamed Park who committed rape, murder, and dismemberment. At this point, in the police station, Taejong was desperately explaining that he didn't know the victim at all, but the police insisted he was the culprit and didn't even give him a chance for parole. Upon hearing the news, Taejong's three good friends rushed to the police station to visit him. They told him with serious expressions that due to the incident's massive publicity, his personal information had been leaked online. Graffiti reading "An eye for an eye, a life for a life" had even been sprayed on the wall of his flower shop. Now, to prove his innocence, Taizhong had to provide an alibi for the time of the crime. Luckily, his delivery routes were well documented. Finding an alibi wouldn't be too difficult, so Suzy, Taizhong's younger brother, and the three friends hurried to gather his whereabouts. From the past 2 days, the five divided the work, each responsible for organizing the routes during breakfast, lunch, and dinner hours. Coupled with the various details Taizhong recalled, they compiled a complete itinerary in just 1 day. Even the defense lawyer couldn't help but praise their efficiency. The lawyer patted his chest and said that with this evidence, he would definitely get him acquitted. Everyone's hanging hearts finally eased a little, but no one expected things to unfold far beyond expectations. In court, the defense lawyer submitted complete alibi evidence, demanding the prosecution release the defendant immediately. Although the submitted alibi seemed flawless, and the satellite-tracked route matched the submitted one, the prosecution still pointed out 3 inconsistencies. First, Taizhong had indeed delivered food to the victim's home on the day she was killed. The delivery record showed he stayed at the door for 7 minutes, but the system indicated delivery in 3 minutes. What exactly did he do during those extra 4 minutes? As soon as Taizhong recalled, he immediately remembered. It was because he'd been delayed handling that potted plant. He then explained the reason in detail. The prosecution didn't refute after hearing this, but immediately moved on to the second point. When the police were investigating Taizhong's whereabouts, they found he had carried a black suitcase and run into an area without surveillance. Taizhong had just explained that he was helping the elderly lady move it. When the prosecution presented photos of the body disposal scene, this suitcase was actually the one that contained the body parts. Taizhong instantly felt chills all over his body. A bad premonition began to creep into his mind.
단지 캐리어 가방의 색깔이 비슷하다는 이유만으로
피고가 사체를 옮겼다고 말하기에는 무리가 있습니다.
게다가 CCTV에 피고가 캐리어를 옮기는 장면은 카메라 사각지대로만 이동할 수도 있겠지만 그것도 수백 번 저기를 왔다 갔다 하지 않는 한 카메라 위치를 어떻게 다 알겠습니까? 보통 사람에게 불가능하죠.
Just as Taizhong was feeling stunned, the prosecution suddenly brought up the third point. Taizhong claimed he had never touched the victim's phone, but the prosecution showed a surveillance clip. It was taken when Taizhong went to a convenience store to throw away trash that night. The phone in his hand was exactly the victim's. Taizhong quickly told the prosecution about the conversation with the phone owner that night, and the whole process of returning the phone. But the problem was that the tunnel where he returned the phone was only a few kilometers away from where the victim was dismembered. The prosecution then questioned who Taizhong had actually handed the phone to, because the satellite positioning track of the victim's phone almost perfectly matched Taizhong's movements over the past 2 days. In other words, Taizhong had never actually returned the phone. He was lying. In addition, the police had found a possible crime scene. There was an empty bathroom in the building where the victim lived, and traces of dismemberment remained there. Moreover, the police also detected Taizhong's DNA in the victim's body. In addition, a necklace was presented as evidence. It was exactly the couple bracelet that Taizhong never took off, and now, Taizhong's wrist was indeed empty. Looking at the clear results on the test report, the bodily fluids matched his perfectly. No matter how Taizhong explained, his words sounded feeble.
저 공사님 나 아니거든요. 자중하세요. 자중하세요.
아까 피고가 말한 그 화분 그 처음부터 없었다는데 화분 키우는 사람도 없었고 상상 속의 화분 그런 겁니까?
Then Taizhong, shouting injustice frantically, was escorted out of the courtroom, even though Suzy and his younger brother were unwilling to believe it. All the evidence now pointed to Taizhong. Later, Suzy came to visit Taizhong and told him that the defense lawyer had suddenly decided to withdraw from the case. His younger brother was still looking for a new lawyer everywhere. But it wasn't easy. Just as Taizhong felt sorrowful, Suzy asked him to raise his wrist, pressing him about where the bracelet she had given him was. Taizhong was stunned, unable to recall where he had put the bracelet. No matter how hard he tried, Suzy couldn't hold back her tears instantly, although she knew Taizhong could never do such a thing. Others didn't think the same way. A conviction was inevitable. No one knew how many years Taizhong would be locked up, and Suzy simply couldn't wait for him that long. so she silently took off the matching necklace from her wrist, placed it gently on the table, and turned to leave. In the end, Taizhong was convicted of rape, murder, and dismemberment and sentenced to life imprisonment. He was escorted to prison that night, facing a group of prisoners, eyeing him covetously. It's well known that rapists are always the most hated group in prison. Taizhong would inevitably suffer countless humiliations. How would he survive for the rest of his life? Just as Taizhong was on the verge of despair, a man claiming to be a public defender took the initiative to find him. The man said he had accidentally come across Taizhong's case and thought there were too many suspicious points. The prosecution had ignored other possibilities from the very beginning. Everything was too precise, so there must be something wrong. Therefore, the man offered to help him appeal the case for free. The lawyer's very sincere attitude made Taizhong see a glimmer of hope again. When asked if he had any evidence to prove his innocence, Taizhong didn't hesitate to say that the necklace at the crime scene wasn't his at all. It turned out that Taizhong had remembered that he had left his bracelet in his younger brother Taizhan's dormitory. The lawyer's eyes lit up immediately, and he quickly said this was a decisive piece of evidence. Hurry and give me your brother's address, and I'll get to the bottom of this.
혹시 모르니까 절대 다른 사람들한테는 얘기하지 말고요. 알겠죠?
너무 감사합니다, 변호사님. 정말 너무 감사합니다.
But Taizhong hadn't been happy for long. When he faced bullying from other inmates, the leading prison guard was in cahoots with them from the start. He let them bully Taizhong without interference. Soon, Taizhong met the prison bully. The bully hated rapists more than anything in his life, so he had planned to torture Taizhong severely. Ever since hearing about his case, luckily, an upright prison guard came for a cell check just in time, sparing Taizhong a beating. Back in his cell, Taizhong looked at the crumpled lawyer's business card in his hand. A faint glimmer of hope rose in his heart. During lunch the next day, other inmates kindly warned Taizhong. The bully's name was Lu Dishio. He had been a gang leader before. Being imprisoned, he was originally sentenced to life imprisonment, but because he paid so much money, his sentence was reduced to 12 years in the end.
여덕수한테 여동생이 하나 있었는데 어떤 놈이 물 주고 확 죽여버린 거야.
물을 준다니요?
왜 이렇게 순진하냐? 어?
It turned out that Lu Dishio's younger sister had been raped and then killed years ago, so after being imprisoned, he made it his mission to torture prisoners of this kind. He would stop only when he was released. Taizhong was completely terrified after hearing this. Just then, an inmate across from him suddenly said, "Don't worry, I'll have your back from now on." Taizhong thought he had met a kind person, but as soon as lunch was over, these three inmates dragged Taizhong into a room. By the time Taizhong realized what was happening and tried to run, it was too late.
야, 꽉 잡아. 간만에 물 좀 주자. 야, 나부터다.
Before long, that lawyer appeared again, but he didn't bring hope. Instead, he brought even crueler despair. Taizhong stared at his younger brother's death certificate, unable to say a word for a long time. His brother's death was the last straw that broke the camel's back. He could no longer find the slightest reason to go on living. That night, Taizhong did something foolish, but just as his consciousness was about to fade, his younger brother came to save him.
다른 것들은 다 살려주면서 왜 형을 죽였냐고. 가. 제발 가. 제발 좀 빨리 가!
In just 1 month, his brother stopped Taizhong 3 times. Meanwhile, Mike, another inmate serving time in the prison, had seen everything. There was a church in this prison. The priest would always lead the inmates in confession. Because Mike was devout and capable, the priest had arranged for him to assist by his side, also known as an acolyte. On this day, taking the opportunity of distributing cakes for Easter, Mike walked up to Taizhong and offered him a lot of encouragement.
나도 처음 몇 달간은 숨도 잘 안 쉬어지더라고요. 그렇지만 살아야죠. 살아내야죠.
Mike also told Taizhong to treat himself as if he had died once. Every remaining day is a grace from God. Only when one is alive can they do what they want. Whether it's regretting the past or reflecting on oneself, one must first live. Well, Mike's words made Tai Zhong rediscover his desire to survive, to live well in prison. He made a very strict life plan, except for the time when he was beaten by other prisoners. He spent all other time either exercising, reading, or learning skills. He even planted a few seeds in the prison's activity area. As days passed, his body became stronger and stronger. The intensity of his training also increased. After some time, he could already exchange a few blows with Ludicio's men, but he couldn't stand against their numerical superiority, and still got beaten in the end. One day, Mike handed Tai Zhong a Bible, telling him to have faith in God. From then on, Tai Zhong immersed himself in reading, and his state of mind gradually calmed down. As time went by day after day, the flowers and plants he had planted had grown tender green branches and leaves. He had also gotten a pile of various technical certificates. 5 years later, the upright police officer Lee came to Tai Zhong's small garden, asking him to help take a look at the flowers in his hand. Police officer Lee had seen Tai Zhong's changes over the years, so he treated Tai Zhong very well. After police officer Lee left, Mike came over and gave Tai Zhong a piece of cake. It turned out that Mike would soon be released from prison after serving his sentence. He took off the cross necklace from his wrist and gave it to Tai Zhong, hoping that Tai Zhong would no longer shed tears in the future. On the day Mike was released, Tai Zhong saw him off through the barbed wire fence. It wasn't until then that Tai Zhong finally couldn't help asking a question hidden in his heart. For a long time, why was Mike so kind to him? Mike smiled and said, "Probably because I want you to live. You're also the only one in prison who's willing to listen to me." With that, Mike turned to leave.
그동안 감사했습니다.
After Mike left, Tai Zhong took over his job in prison, until one day, a bruised young man walked into the prison church. Tai Zhong thought he had come to repent, but he heard something that shocked him.
여기 하느님을 한번 믿어보세요.
나는 죄가 없어요.
아니 그러니까 제가 하고 싶은 말은
그날 핸드폰 찾아주러 공원에만 안 갔어도 이런 일은 안 일어났을 거예요.
It turned out that this young man had suffered exactly the same fate as Tai Zhong. He was sent to prison just because he found a mobile phone. Even the public defender he met with was the very same one, after his only mother also committed suicide under mysterious circumstances. The young man finally realized that the so-called public defender wasn't a lawyer at all, but an accomplice. Tai Zhong then fully understood that these two seemingly accidental tragedies had been a carefully planned trap. From start to finish, the lawyer who had volunteered to help him appeal the case hadn't only deceived him but also killed his younger brother. Unluckily, the young man didn't have Tai Zhong's tenacious will to live. He also died mysteriously in prison soon after, and no one took responsibility for his death at all. Later, Tai Zhong tricked the fake lawyer into coming to the prison, under the excuse of having new evidence. The other person immediately asked to see the new evidence, but Tai Zhong brought up the young inmate, who had just arrived yesterday and died mysteriously today. He also asked the fake lawyer, "Do you remember him?"
시골에 계신 어머니가 자살했다는 소식 그 당신이 직접 전달했나?
확보했다는 증거 없지.
The lawyer's immediate change of expression confirmed Tai Zhong's judgment was correct. The fake lawyer was the real murderer who killed his brother. At this point, the lawyer stopped pretending and openly admitted everything. They had deliberately planted the mobile phone to frame Tai Zhong, ensuring he was captured on camera, and to destroy the bracelet evidence that was with his brother. The fake lawyer had personally killed Tai Zhong's younger brother. But what could Tai Zhong do even if he knew the truth? Did he really think he could take revenge in prison? As he spoke, the man sneered mockingly. Yet even though the man had admitted it so openly, none of the prison guards present reacted. It was clear that the prison guards had also been bribed by the people behind the fake lawyer.
조각이 깨졌습니다. 청소가 필요할 것 같습니다.
After going back to the church, Tai Zhong looked up at the cross hanging high above. A flame of revenge burned fiercely in his heart. Later, Tai Zhong gave the Bible back to the priest. This book was no longer useful to him. Tai Zhong swore he would uncover the truth, find the real mastermind hiding behind the scenes, avenge his brother, and clear his own name. On the other side, a statue was being auctioned at a South Korean auction house. The price had already reached 2.3 billion won, but the bidding was still ongoing. On the second floor of the auction house, a young master was treating the auction like a fun game. He instructed his nanny to raise the bid immediately, whenever someone else placed a bid, because he knew someone would definitely follow. Sure enough, every time the price was raised, a middle-aged man on the first floor would immediately follow with a higher bid, so the bidding price soared to a terrifying 3.5 billion won, far exceeding the artwork's actual value. During the break, the middle-aged man quickly called the young master. He asked, "Can I offer you something else instead of that statue?"
아드님의 삶의 가치는
얼마가 적당하다고 생각하십니까?
It turned out that the statue auction was just a cover. The middle-aged man's son had committed murder. The young master could help find a suitable scapegoat, just like Tai Zhong and the young man, and the young master's specified reward was for the middle-aged man to buy the statue and give it to him. But what was perverted was that the young master didn't care about the auction price at all. After all, his family already had more money than they could ever spend. What the young master wanted to see was the middle-aged man's desperate expression when he was on the verge of collapse. He enjoyed the thrill of manipulating other people's fates. In the end, to save his bastard son, the middle-aged man had to pay the sky-high price of 6 billion won.
뭐 이렇게 금방 무너지냐, 재미없게.
The statue was soon delivered to the young master's home. Countless statues lined the corridors. No one knew how many similar deals the young master had made. The next day, while the young master was half-heartedly listening to a report at the company, he suddenly received a call from the fake lawyer.
네.
조각이 깨졌습니다. 청소가 필요할 것 같습니다.
After listening, the young master immediately made arrangements and sent a professional hitman to the prison, planning to get rid of Tai Zhong once and for all. Just then, Tai Zhong was stopped by Lu Dishou again. Lu Dishou still wanted to teach him a lesson like before, but he didn't expect that Tai Zhong was no longer the same person he used to be. With a fierce offensive, Tai Zhong quickly defeated all of Lu Dishou's men. In the blink of an eye, only Lu Dishou was left, but Tai Zhong didn't beat him in public. Instead, he stepped forward and said, "Don't bother me again in the future." The news of Lu Dishou's defeat spread throughout the prison in no time. Two fearless inmates even dared to talk about it behind his back. Unluckily for them, Lu Dishou overheard their conversation. Unable to take his anger out on Tai Zhong, Lu Dishou vented all his fury on these two inmates. Just then, John, another gang leader who had a grudge against Lu Dishou, approached him. It was clear that the two had a long-standing feud. Just as they were about to fight, the prison guard supervisor rushed over to stop them, and took Lu Dishou to see the warden.
야, 씨발, 파이트 클럽에 파이팅이 없냐? 내가 용돈이나 벌자고 이 판 깔아준 거 아니잖아.
It turned out that the warden organized prisoners to fight illegal boxing matches as a bookmaker. To make money, one prisoner had already died in the prison, and another death would mean dereliction of duty. So the warden ordered Lu Dishou to stop causing trouble recently. After speaking, the warden handed Lu Dishou a list of new prisoners, telling him to take good care of two newly arrived financial criminals, and torture the location of their hidden money out of them. On the other side, Mike came to the prison to visit Tai Zhong. Seeing Mike again, Tai Zhong was overwhelmed with grievances that he had nowhere to vent. He choked up and said he was innocent of any crime, and solemnly told Mike that he would definitely get out of there. Although the warden had told Lu Dishou to hold back temporarily, he hadn't ordered the others to do the same, so Lu Dishou sent one of his underlings to Tai Zhong's cell, telling him to kill Tai Zhong that night. Night fell soon after. Tai Zhong took out his treasured documents and flipped through them. They included a topographic map of the whole prison that he had secretly drawn, only by obtaining the keys to several crucial gates, and having a detailed escape plan. Could he successfully break out of prison? The prison guards changed shifts at 3:30 every day. There was a door leading outside in Area B, and the only route to Area B that avoided the guard site was through the ventilation ducts. Visiting hours in the prison ended at 4 o'clock, and the food delivery truck would arrive at that time too, so he had to complete the escape before 4 o'clock. In the middle of the night, the underling quietly got into Tai Zhong's cell, trying to sneak attack him while he was asleep, but Tai Zhong had long been on guard, and easily dodged the attack. Then the two fought in the cell. During the roll call the next day, when Lu Dishou saw Tai Zhong walking out of the cell unharmed, and his bruised underling bowing and groveling to him, he was completely stunned. But this incident also made Taizhong realize that Ludicio was a major obstacle, and he needed to find a way to have him locked up for a few days. So during lunch, Taizhong carried his tray and sat down across from Ludicio. In a calm tone, he said, "As long as you're willing to stop here, I can pretend nothing happened before." But Ludicio didn't know how to appreciate kindness, saying, "If you want to make peace, you have to die."
너 여동생이 성폭행 당했다며. 그거 네가 한 거잖아. 왜 아닌 척하냐?
Ludicio was instantly enraged, and grabbed his tray to throw at Taizhong, but Taizhong didn't fight back at all, because his goal was to provoke Ludicio into attacking, so that the guards would lock him in solitary confinement, as expected. The plan worked perfectly. Later, Taizhong asked Gardley for some green sponges, under the excuse of taking care of the plants. Gardley readily agreed, and casually told Taizhong a piece of news: his application to clean an Area B had been rejected, as the area was already fully staffed. After Gardley left, Taizhong immediately hid the green sponges in a flower pot. He then quietly placed the pot in the warehouse. Shortly after, Taizhong secretly attacked an inmate who was alone, freeing up a spot for cleaning. In Area B, after volunteering for the position, Taizhong snuck into the warehouse while cleaning. He pressed the key to the Area B gate onto the green sponge, leaving an impression. Then he carried the flower pot to the small garden, and poured white glue into the key impression. Once the glue hardened, it would form a complete mold of the key. But as he busily prepared, the hitman sent by the young master was also ready to strike. He disguised himself as a doctor and got into the prison openly, under the excuse of administering vaccines to inmates. The pink potion in his hand was specially prepared for Taizhong. At noon, a guard's car broke down, so he called Taizhong over to help fix it. Taking advantage of the guard's lunch break, Taizhong rushed to the auto repair simulation classroom, and traced the outline of the white glue key mold onto a metal plate. He then started cutting the key. Unluckily, the guard came back from lunch earlier than usual, holding a hamburger for Taizhong.
이 새끼가 차고 차니까 헛짓거리하고 있어.
Luckily, Taizhong had already finished cutting the key. He was holding a small replacement part for the car, so the guard didn't think twice and handed him the hamburger. But just as Taizhong was about to leave, the guard called him back. It turned out that every inmate who finished work had to undergo a full body search. The guard scanned him thoroughly with a detector, but it didn't beep. As the key was hidden in the hamburger bag, Taizhong wanted to hurry back to his cell to prepare for the next step, but John stopped him. John offered to team up with him to take down Ludicio, but Taizhong refused on the spot. Instead of getting angry, John became even more interested in Taizhong. When Taizhong went back to his cell, the prison guard supervisor was already waiting for him. It turned out there was an illegal boxing match the next day. The supervisor had bet on Taizhong to win. To prevent Taizhong's condition from being affected by the vaccine, he had arranged for a substitute to receive the injection instead. At 3 o'clock the next day, the supervisor took Taizhong to the boxing ring. But Taizhong's mind was full of his escape plan. He had no desire to finish the match, so before the match even started, he stepped forward, knocked down one opponent, and considered the match finished. Then he ignored John's shouts and hurried away. At this point, the hitman disguised as a doctor and Gardley were already waiting outside the cell. It turned out, the hitman had seen through the substitute the previous day, so he had kept the vaccine laced with rat poison for an extra day. After confirming Taizhong's identity, the hitman injected him with the vaccine. After completing the task, the hitman immediately sent a text message to the young master. Barring any accidents, Taizhong would die from the poison in 30 minutes. But Taizhong had no idea. He had been poisoned. After the two left, he quickly took out the nails and keys he had prepared in advance from under his bed. He then sneaked into the warehouse, carefully placing the nails beside the socket. With a fire extinguisher, he hammered them in forcefully. The power in the area immediately tripped. Taizhong then used one of the keys to open the door, where the access cards were stored. He took the one he needed. Later, pushing a cart and pretending to be cleaning, Taizhong walked past the guards as if nothing was wrong. He went to the supplies warehouse, took a set of civilian clothes, changed quickly, and swiped the card to open the gate, but immediately after, guards rushed over after hearing the commotion. Taizhong had to quickly hide in another warehouse. When the guards walked in to check, they didn't see Taizhong at all. Only after the guards left, did Taizhong emerge from his hiding place. But by then, the rat poison had already started to take effect. Taizhong didn't know what was happening, but he stood the discomfort and continued his escape. Mike was waiting anxiously outside the prison gate. It turned out that during his visit the other day, Taizhong had already told Mike about his escape plan, asking him to wait outside and assist today. But Mike began to doubt if Taizhong would really make it out, as he hadn't appeared for a long time. In fact, Taizhong had already climbed into the ventilation duct, but as he was moving forward cautiously, the sound was heard by a guard, who was about to finish his shift. The guard picked up a mop and poked it into the duct. Luckily, the guard didn't suspect anything. He just thought it was a mouse scurrying around, and didn't pay it any more attention. Now the time was getting closer and closer to 4 o'clock, and the effect of the rat poison was growing stronger. Taizhong's consciousness began to blur. What he didn't know was that Mike had just run into Gardley, who was on his way home from work. Mike lied, saying he had business to take care of at the prison. The kind-hearted Gardley offered to help him handle it, but Mike quickly declined, saying he would come back the next day. After climbing out of the ventilation duct, Taizhong stumbled to the prison office lobby. He was just one step away from regaining his freedom. Seeing an elderly lady sitting nearby, Taizhong struggled to pry off his watch face, and used it to slash the lady's lunchbox. Taking advantage of the chaos that distracted everyone, Taizhong quickly stood up, followed the crowd through security, and finally saw the gate to freedom. But just then, the rat poison fully took effect. The world around him turned colorful, and finally, his body went limp and he collapsed to the ground. Meanwhile, the young master went to watch the training of the racing team he sponsored. But despite the thrilling, adrenaline-pumping scenes that should have excited him, the young master couldn't seem to get interested. He always felt like something was missing. Wouldn't it be more fun if there were some small obstacles on the track, like banana peels all over the track, making the cars crash into each other?
아이 사고가 나면 저희 선수가 다치니까 그게 더 큰일이죠. 예.
아, 뭐가 문제인지 알겠다. 죽으면 안 되는 사람이라고 생각하는구나. 정리해.
오늘부로 여기 메인 스폰은 중단하겠습니다.
예?
When he got home that night, the young master immediately built the fun obstacles he had imagined using Lego bricks. Now he had a very bold and crazy plan in mind. Before long, his nanny came to check on him, and was surprised to find that he was much happier than usual.
재밌겠지?
역시 도련님다운 생각입니다.
역시 내 마음 아는 건 유머밖에 없다니까.
Before long, the police chief personally accompanied the young master to the prison. The chief specifically instructed the warden, "Try your best to do whatever the young guy asks." After the chief left, the young master threw a document in front of the warden. It was a proposal for an environmental volunteer activity for prisoners at an abandoned factory. It turned out, the young master wanted to select 12 serious offenders from the prison, take them to the renovated abandoned factory, and play a very fun game. Of course, whether they could come back alive depended on their own efforts. Before the warden could fully process what was happening, the young master casually placed a heavy bag down. When opened, it was filled with shining gold bars. The young master promised to give the warden 5 more after the event, and he also held leverage over the warden. The warden had embezzled public funds to trade virtual currency, but had been scammed. Evidence in his study had already been seized, but with just one phone call from the young master, the materials would be returned. The warden had no right to refuse.
그 파일 맨 뒷장에 나와 있는 조건에 맞춰서 외부 출력 내보내세요. 뭐 폭력, 살인, 강도 적절히 잘 섞어보세요.
On the other side, Gardley reviewed several other surveillance cameras, and figured out the whole process of Taizhong's escape. He followed Taizhong's escape route, and finally found the ventilation duct. Suddenly realizing that Taizhong had planned to escape through the main gate, Gardley couldn't help but admire him. After all, no inmate had ever dared to escape through the main gate before, yet that made the main gate the weakest link. Although Taizhong had been injected with rat poison, luckily, Mike had been sending him health supplements containing vitamin K3. It had neutralized some of the poison's effects, allowing him to hold on long enough to be rescued alive. To avoid being implicated, the guards kept quiet about Taizhong's escape. On the other side, Lu Dishio was released from solitary confinement early by the warden. Because his name was on the outbound list, the warden mocked him. "Look at you, you're almost being played like a dog by Taizhong." These words completely enraged Lu Dishio. He decided to kill Taizhong that night. Lu Dishio then gathered all his underlings and rushed toward the infirmary. Gardley sensed something was wrong and tried to go check, but the underlings forcibly stopped him at the door. Gardley had to run back to get backup. The warden scattered stacks of cash in front of his men, saying, "Those who are willing to work can come get the money." Without hesitation, everyone rushed forward to grab the money, but immediately after, Gardley sounded the alarm. They had to go check what was happening. In the next second, Taizhong suddenly rushed out, catching Lu Dishio off guard. Luckily, Lu Dishio had sent some of his underlings to block the guards at the gate, so only a few remained by his side. Taizhong still had a chance to fight back. After a fierce struggle, only Taizhong and Lu Dishio were left in the infirmary. Lu Dishio slowly stepped forward, pulled out a dagger, and stabbed at Taizhong. Taizhong counterattacked by punching Lu Dishio in the neck. The two fought fiercely for a long time, and gradually Taizhong gained the upper hand. Even at this point, he still didn't want to kill Lu Dishio. In the end, Taizhong didn't kill him, but he slashed Lu Dishio's ear with a knife. By the time the guards broke through the door and rushed in, the fight was already over. In the middle of the night, the 12 serious offenders were suddenly ambushed by the guards. Each of them was blindfolded with a black sack and escorted onto a truck. Taizhong, who had been dreaming of escaping, was among them. The truck drove all the way to an abandoned factory. As soon as it stopped, a group of men holding submachine guns approached, escorting all the prisoners to a designated area. Early the next morning, the prisoners changed into white clothes printed with numbers, and were ordered to walk toward the center of the factory area. When they arrived, they were shocked to find that the abandoned factory had been transformed into a huge playground. A bloody and thrilling game was about to begin. The above is all the content of the first 4 newly updated episodes of the Korean drama The Manipulated. If you're eager to know the follow-up plot, you can watch the movie version Fabricated City. The male lead is also Chan Wook-ji. If you want to know the direction of the drama's following development, stay tuned for future commentary updates. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.